We recognize the land on which we gather has been and still is the traditional territory of several indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. As you may be joining us virtually from different locations, we acknowledge the many diverse nations and territories from which you are joining. We invite you, whether you are here in person with us or joining from elsewhere, to think about your own treaty responsibilities and how you can commit to reconciliation. As an institution of higher learning, Sheridan recognizes and embraces the critical role that education must play in facilitating real transformational change. We continue our collective efforts to recognize Canada's colonial history and take steps towards meaningful truth and reconciliation. I would now like to introduce Dr. Jane Ngobia, Sheridan's VP of Inclusive Communities, who will provide brief remarks and introduce our guest speaker and moderator. Jane is an inspirational leader who is shaping, promoting, and implementing Sheridan's strategic direction, vision, and initiatives for equity, diversity, and inclusivity. She is committed to fostering and reaffirming an inclusive campus built on a strong sense of connection and respect for others' rights to belong in equal opportunity to engage, thrive, and succeed. I would like you all to welcome Dr. Jane Ngobia.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this special event, an evening of inspiration with Kayla Grey. As I've been introduced, I am the Vice President of Inclusive Communities, and I'm very delighted to be here with you all. I would like to give some special recognition on behalf of Sheridan to our guest speaker and moderator. A warm welcome to you all. Today we'll hear from Kayla and Sheridan's alum, Alicia Ace West, two extraordinary women redefining Canadian sports broadcasting. This moment to hear from Kayla and Alicia has been organized by Sheridan Black Excellence Committee, and I want to take a minute to acknowledge the important work that this committee has done for us here at Sheridan. The Black Excellence Committee was formed in 2019 to address the need for a pan-institutional approach to addressing Black history. The committee, made of students and employees, has been consultative and highly impactful over the years under the leadership of co-founding chairs Sean McNabney and Peter Amponsa, as well as the current co-chairs Alicia Sullivan and Brian Chalmer. I could not be prouder of their numerous accomplishments. Thank you for everything you do for Sheridan. Our work as a college doesn't happen during Black History Month alone. It happens round year, and it takes many forms because we at Sheridan deliberately and intentionally engage internal and external partners in initiatives to make a difference for our students and youth experiencing marginalization in our communities. I'm just going to share with you just a few of some of the examples that we do. The first one, I'll just share three actually, I could share a whole lot more. The first one is bursary and financial assistance. Each year, Sheridan issues millions of dollars that is non-repayable financial assistance to students. In 2022-23 academic year, Sheridan issued $21.7 million to more than 14,800 students through academic awards, bursaries, and scholarships. Sheridan also provides funding that targets certain equity-deserving groups, the Sheridan Black Student Bursary and Sheridan Indigenous Bursaries. Last year alone, 700 awards were issued to students through bursaries totaling $1,089,000. In addition, Sheridan receives 150 separate donor-based awards. Many of these donor-based awards include a criteria that recipients must identify as either Black and or Indigenous. We are very grateful to very generous donors who make this awards possible. The other program that I want to just share briefly is a research program called Hearts and Minds, community-based research project. Sheridan was awarded $360,000 by NSHAC to co-create new models of empowerment for Black and Indigenous youth in Black organizations. This is applied research. It brings together Black youth and Indigenous youth with community organizations and Sheridan as a third party. The project has reached over 300 nonprofit practitioners and created a framework for civic engagement for Black and Indigenous youth. This framework is very useful for youths serving communities and organizations in our local communities. So when we talk about doing applied research, we do research that is ready and helpful for the communities right up front. The third program that I want to talk about is called Sheridan's Youth Amplified. This is an outreach program. It's a suite of community-focused initiatives that amplify the voices of youths in communities to forge their way to post-secondary institution. And I must say, it is not just to Sheridan. It's to any post-secondary institution anywhere in the world or in Ontario. At Sheridan, we understand that Black youth face challenges in accessing post-secondary education. We know that this leads to exclusion from the labor market, ultimately. These intersecting barriers are often deeply rooted in systemic policies and practices. Youth Amplified is our effort to address these barriers in our local communities. Last year alone, we reached over 371 Black youths, partnered with 11 youth-serving organizations in Peel and Halton, and the program continues. We are still working on numbers for this year, but we have already reached over 2,000 youths into STEM programs, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Very targeted program to reach specific youths and encourage them. Now, the most important thing is that as a result of participating in these programs, 100% of the youth said they felt more confident and more comfortable exploring their Black identity. At the same time, they said they always felt listened to and valued by their mentors. They developed improved confidence, and many of us, I'm sure, wish we felt that way when we were growing up. These are only a few of the many programs that Sheridan continues to lead, and they are driving local impact for students, prospective students from equity-deserving groups. I am so proud of the work that we are doing collectively. Now, it is against this backdrop that the theme of this year's Black History Month was born: finding home, belonging, and community. That's our theme this year. This theme highlights the importance of creating a welcoming and inclusive community where everyone feels safe, respected, and a valued contributor. A place where we can authentically be ourselves, where we can express our identities, our ideas, our creativity, and full acceptance and appreciation. While a lot has been done, there is a lot more that remains to be done. That is why today I am delighted to learn more from the experiences and perspectives of our guest speaker, Kayla Grey, an award-winning storyteller, personality, host, and executive producer of TSN's The Shift, sports anchor with TSN Sports Center, and sideline reporter for the Toronto Raptors. Kayla describes herself as a creator and a connector. In fact, there's one thing that I read from Kayla's site that says, "The journey to progress is not a path traveled solo. Community is essential and at the core of my why." That could not be more appropriate for us, Kayla, as it is for Sheridan. This is fitting given our theme recognizes truly the importance of belonging and community. We'll hear more from Kayla and about Kayla in a moment. I would also like to warmly welcome our moderator for tonight's event, Alicia Ace West, a radio personality, podcaster, and host. She's part of the new morning show on Floor 98.8 called Ace and Malone in the morning, hosts the popular weekly podcast Extra Gravy Show. If that's not enough, she's one also in the game host of the Toronto Argos, as well as the only woman PA announcer in Canada. You can catch her announcing at Scarborough Shooting Star games. Now, for those of us who are students here at Sheridan, Alicia is also a proud grad, a proud product that we can call our own. We are delighted to welcome Alicia back home today, and now I would like to welcome both Alicia and Kayla to the stage. Please join me.
Like, the best thing is that I didn't fall, so we're good. I would have caught you. Hi, guys. That's it. Hi. Thank you guys for having us here. Like everyone has said, I once upon a time went here. Not this campus. This campus is nice. I wish it was around when I was here. I went to Brampton and both Oakville, and I played on the women's basketball team. And we won some championships, so my heart is definitely here with Sheridan. Amazing, Kayla. Kayla, you've been grinding for a very long time, and as a Black person, a Black woman, as somebody who is outspoken and confident, I know there has been challenges. It's obvious, especially at the start of your career where you were navigating this media space out west. Mm-hmm. What are some challenges that you had faced, and can you give advice on, well, how you navigated it and how anyone else who may be faced with them in the future could navigate away from or handle those?
Yeah, I think for my background, there were things at play, obviously, of what you guys see as me being a Black woman, but then also my background and upbringing. Mm-hmm. I was someone who got kicked out of school twice. Stay in school, guys.
But, yeah.
Lived on her own at 15, so I had all of these different economical differences than people that I looked to in this industry. It just felt like they were sons of someone who had probably been in broadcasting before.
Yep.
They knew someone. It was predominantly white, old male. And so when you talk about confidence, I lacked so much of that when I had entered the space. And really, it was only until the second year of my schooling, secondary schooling, that I really wanted to be on air because, fun fact, when I had gotten into school, I wanted to just be a story editor because I hadn't seen myself on TV. And as you guys know, if you don't see yourself, you don't really think that you can be there. Yeah. And I would illegally stream. I know there's police here, but it's fine. It's fine. I was illegally streaming ESPN feeds when I was a teenager just to see Black women covering the sidelines. Lisa Salters, who is like my idol, just doing her thing. Mm-hmm. And so seeing her, the Jamel Hills of the world existing, it really sparked something in me to be like, let me try and see if I can do the storytelling thing in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first hurdle of confidence for me, was like, okay, shoot, if there's no one in Canada that's doing it, you're probably gonna have to be the first, and it's gonna be a bumpy ride. And it was a bumpy ride. But my first experience was moving out to Winnipeg, and I worked for Global News at the time. And that was so different, but also eye-opening for me. At that time, it was weather and news. That's what I was out there covering. All I really wanted to do was cover sports. But it really, really broke me into, one, learning how to navigate and be welcomed into different communities, learning how to care about things that didn't necessarily ring true for me, but rang true for so many other people. I was able to connect with a very large indigenous population that I didn't necessarily know back in Toronto. So that was something that was good for me as well, was to just get out of my own comfort zone and to learn real struggle as well, that I didn't think was necessarily getting coverage. And then I moved to Prince Rupert, British Columbia. Does anyone know where Prince Rupert is?
No.
It's
exactly. Very north,
It's
right?
like close to Alaska. Like, first of all, my issues was I moved to Winnipeg, I moved to Prince Rupert British Columbia. I don't know where the black hair supply stores are. Okay, like that was priority one. Was like, where am I gonna find my Cantu? Like
In Prince,
it wasn't available in
no.
Prince Rupert. Let me tell you, we were like cocoa oil, all that stuff out. But anyways, Prince Rupert was on the end of the Highway of Tears, and of course, for anyone that knows, that's where a lot of Indigenous women have gone missing or have been murdered. And so I don't necessarily know that I would know those stories, know how much of a high emergency of concern it was for the Indigenous community had I not lived there. And so I owe so much of that perspective to that experience of getting into this space. And, you know, after coming back and realizing sports was what I really wanted to do, it really allowed me to lean into the humanity of sports because I had that experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't, when I went out to BC, I felt like I was experiencing something that we never see in Ontario or Montreal. Like the Indigenous community is weaved into everyday life, and it makes me think why we don't have that here,
right?
You know, because this is still where they were. This is still their land. So why is it only a focus in the West?
Yeah, and I know we're here for Black History Month, and of course we're centering the conversation of Indigenous struggle. But truly, when we're thinking about being in Canada, I firmly believe it is our responsibility to make sure that we're fighting for the liberation of all. And so, you know, I think that that's very important.
So as you made your way back from the West back to Toronto, what were some challenges you were facing trying to get on air and solidify your spot?
Everything, Alicia. Everything was an issue. So, you know, when I had first started coming into this industry, I went to College of Sports Media, and I was literally sneaking into Raptors practices. This was back when they would practice on the third floor at Scotiabank Arena. They still have that gym open. But I would literally sneak into Raptors practice with my guy, Mark Valena, who now actually is the head of content for the G League. And he would like film me like there trying to get quick interviews. Amir Johnson was at that on the team at the time. He would always give me time. Kyle Lowry would always give me answers if I needed. DeMar would always give me time. Dwayne Casey was the coach at that time. And I think what we all collectively realized was, dang, there are no black women up in this space. And, you know, I really pay a lot to those guys for granting me that time, whether or not they knew it or not. Because when you walked into that space, you just felt like, oh, I'm different.
Yeah.
And other people like to let you know that you were different. How could a black woman and pretty black woman be around all these guys and young without wanting something other than answers? And you know, those are real things and conversations. I always say, you know, when I first started coming around the team, I had to like put on a fake wedding band just so people would like leave me alone. I just wanted to storytell around sports. It's such a real thing as a woman.
That's a ridiculous thing that we even have to do that.
But it's a really real thing as a woman in sports. And so, you know, there's that of entering the space that way, but then also coming into a sports landscape that was predominantly white and old men and hockey focused. And for me, this girl from Scarborough, it was basketball that made her heart beat fast. And as I mentioned, I hadn't seen anyone that looked like me on TSN at that time at all. And so it was a real tall hill to climb. A lot of people think that when I joined TSN, my first job was hosting SportsCenter. I was actually a radio producer.
Yes, I remember that.
I was producing radio like till 3 a.m, and it was a grind from there. And then I would go up every half hour and be like, okay, here's the scores that you need to know. And I really built myself up to that point. And it took a long time. I auditioned one time. I was too green. I auditioned another time. I was fine, and I kept auditioning. I just remember the old boss at the time kept auditioning me. And it got to a point, and this is where allyship is a major thing, and I'll always say their names, is James Duthie, who is like one of the face of the network, Jay Onright at that time. They literally emailed my boss, and they're like, yo, this girl's done
She's
6 auditions. She's more than capable. You're going to have to give us a reason as to why she's not the next SportsCenter anchor. And so they made me that. And so I made my debut in 2018 and became the first black woman to ever host a sports highlight show in Canada. Thank you. Wait, small wrinkle. I was pregnant at the time.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna be like, this girl was doing it pregnant.
I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I'm just like, damn.
What a time.
This audience is about to see the first black woman to tell them their sports highlights, and she's also 8.5 months pregnant and can barely breathe. It's gonna be a great introduction.
When you got the position while pregnant, what were some of your first thoughts?
Can I swear?
I don't know.
No, I'm not going to. It was,
I don't know.
it was dang. Yeah, timing.
Yeah.
I was like, Lord, is this the timing that you be talking about it being yours? Because this seems hella inconvenient for me. No, I think at that time that I was pregnant with my son, first of all, if I could go back, I think I would be more open about being pregnant at that time. Because in sports, as a woman, you're told you can either go full throttle in your career or you take a foot off the gas and you start your family. I didn't know that I could achieve both at the same time.
Yes.
So I hid my pregnancy for like 7 months, like oversized clothes, everything. So, yeah, that was one of the challenges, and the mom brain's kicking in as I'm trying to remember your question here as well. But
just some challenges that you faced, and like what your initial thoughts were.
That was my biggest concern is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a kid. I just got this amazing opportunity, and I'm gonna have to peace out to have this kid. And they always tell you if you're like out of sight, you're out of mind. And I think I really had to get over that as opposed to understanding and pulling up the receipts of what I'd laid down so far, which was the groundwork from radio up into the on-air work that I had done so far of like, I laid down true roots at TSN. If I wanted to step away, I felt like I had to realize I did enough that if I come back, I'll be okay. And I was okay. And I'm so blessed that my son literally has been with me for every major milestone in my career.
Yeah.
He always thought that I played basketball, so it was quite disappointing last year when I took him to his first game and he was like, so what do you actually do here? But yeah, I think that, there needs to be conversations about empowering women who do choose to have families and letting them know that it is okay and you can find success. And really, if you're journalism students in the building, living your life makes you 20 times better of a journalist and storyteller because now you have context on life.
If you don't live life, you have nothing to talk about.
You have nothing to talk about but stats. And I just think that that's not the most interesting conversation for me to have.
I completely agree. I understand it. I'm a new mom. You have these thoughts, like, how is my life going to change? And I will say that you inspired me because one thing she didn't mention is that she went back to work 8 weeks later.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she didn't get a maternity leave. And looking back, do you regret that?
Yeah, I really go back and forth. I went back to work after I had my son Levi 6 to 8 weeks after I had him, literally like probably hospital gown freaking sitting giving the news. And I think I needed to prove to myself at that time that I could do it and that I still had it.
Yes.
And then I also needed to prove to other people that I could still do it and had it, which was the problem.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Never do anything to prove anything to anybody but yourself. But we learn. And but yeah, I wish I took a little bit more time to, last night I was up until 3 a.m. going through all these, I know y'all came here for sports and I'm here giving you the mom talk. I was going through my phone and like photos of my kid and when he was 1 and younger, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that went by so fast. I wish I was a lot more present for that. So
it
flies.
It's
a little bit, exactly.
Yeah. So why I said you really inspired me because I took a long maternity leave for my full-time job. I was supposed to go back 12 months, and I said, nah, I'm going to go back 18 months. Y'all don't need me. I'm fine. But in terms of all the other things that I did, it was a couple of months, and I remember I was offered the position as the PA announcer for the Scarborough Shooting Stars, and that was May. I had given birth the end of February, and I was like, okay, do I say no? Because one, I've never done it. I've never been a PA. I don't even know,
And she's killing it.
Thank you. And two, my baby's so new.
Yeah.
That means I'm going to spend a lot more time away because I was still doing Argos and podcasting and all that other stuff. And I just kept remembering, like, Kayla did it. I can do it too. You know what I mean? I definitely would have gotten back to my full-time work.
I think I have to, but I think, like, you know, I always am trying to be mindful now about being very, very honest, because I think honesty is the best way to prepare the next generation, as opposed to, I did it so you could do it too. I did it with a community like my mom.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and it was not hard. There were times I'd run to the bathroom and start crying because, you know, mom guilt and all of the things. There were times I missed my son, and I'm going to be honest, there were times I did not miss my son. There were times I was on the road and I woke up at 9 a.m. I'm like, oh, this feels nice. And that's just like the truth of it. I think, you know, when I first got into the industry and made my debut, and it kind of, first of all, I didn't tell anyone that I was the first black woman, even that, though I knew, because I didn't want to, like, make it a weird thing.
Yeah.
But eventually, when it became a thing, I think I made the mistake of making, like, the legacy conversation so grand of, like, I want to leave a legacy behind for all these young black women and black men to, like, follow. And now I'm, like, so simplified that, like, my legacy, literally my goal was to be a great ancestor to my son's kids, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as a parent, I just want him to see that you have to do what makes you happy. His mom did everything that she could that made her happy, and that's why he gets the mom that he gets every day.
That was the same thought process I had when I decided that I was going to do the PA announcing. Like, if my daughter came to me years later and said, I was faced with a challenge and I decided not to take it because I've never done it. Like, I don't want her to do that. I want her to be like, okay, my mom never did something, and she just went out and she did it. She tried it and ended up being cool.
Yeah, and in ways, it's continuing lineage. Like, you know, I'm a first-gen Canadian. My mom came here when she was 14. And, you know, your parents always tell you, and I'm sure first-gen Canadians know, and this is trauma, by the way, when your parents are like, I came to this country to give you a better future.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, this guy's clapping like, yes! and you know, you hold on to that, right, as a kid, and you almost feel like every day you owe your parents something, and that's a massive burden to just hang on to, if that makes sense. But, you know, and I think the most radical thank you that you can do is evolve that. It's, okay, Mom, shout out to you. Grandma, thanks. I want to take this one step further about what it means to rest and what it means to dream wildly for my son and what it means to talk about mental health. And then my kid's going to look at me and be like, thanks, Mom, cool. Let's evolve that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. And you've really broken barriers, not only for your family, but for other people, and helped reshape the landscape. You were the first, but now when you go on the TV, you see so people like Reagan, Subban, you see, what's her name? Takia Singh. You see all of these young black women who are killing it in the sports world. How do you, well, obviously you're happy about it, but what about the responsibility of it? How have you been able to deal with the responsibility?
Yeah, I think it was Kamala Harris that said, like, to break through glass ceilings, like, it cuts, it hurts. And so I think sometimes you have to give yourself a level of acknowledgement that to be the first, sometimes it freaking sucks. Like, there is nothing, like, happy about the hero story. There are a lot of conversations that you guys have never heard. There are a lot of no's that I've had to deal with. There are a lot of racist tweets that I had to receive. There are a lot of fights that I still have to have. And that was a responsibility that I felt was very important, so that a Takia Singh doesn't have to have that, so that Reagan doesn't have to think about asking for a proper makeup artist because she's tired of looking gray going on the TV. It's minute things, but as black women, we know that that is something you should not have to think about. But I had to go through all that stuff. And so it's not to say, well, you got to suffer too. That's also another thing of, I think sometimes
There's
a
been
disconnect.
a lot of that
There's
too.
been a lot of that of like when you see other people thrive, you feel like it's taking away from your journey, and it's not. I think the responsibility is, like I always said, I'm okay being the first, but I'll be damned if I'm the last.
Period.
And so, that to me means, how do I show up? How do I create platforms and shows so that I can employ more Black women, employ more marginalized folk, and show the country that these stories and these storytellers matter.
Speaking about shows, The Shift with Kayla Grey, it explores important social and cultural topics. This show came about during the pandemic, and I remember you going through a lot.
Yes.
And you also called out a lot of
Media members.
Yeah. You called out a lot of people, and it essentially worked in your benefit.
What did Jay-Z said? Haha, I just tell the truth
When I'm nervous. Yeah.
That part. You know what's funny is, if anyone's ever followed me before SportsCenter or knows me personally, they wouldn't flinch at the stuff that I was saying in 2020, because like that's the same energy that I've always had. I just would get in trouble for it. Like I would get calls from my bosses like every other week, like, Kayla, can't tweet that, don't say that. I've kept the same energy for years. I just think after the murder of George Floyd and the pandemic and us all having to sit our asses down, sit our bums down for a bit and really take a look at who we are in the mirror.
Yeah.
There seemed to be a level of tolerance people had for the conversations that I was trying to have. And so, yeah, that sort of explains 2020. I think from the media landscape inside of things is, there were all these segments. Everybody remembers the specials, all the Black specials, and the this and the show and the talk and the this and the that. And it was tiring. I was telling my therapist the other day that it felt like this year, 2024, is the first year I've felt ease from 2020. And I realized that I was almost becoming a part of the problem in 2020, because I'm a Black woman who has gone through some trauma and some things. How can I fit my trauma into a 4-minute segment? Like that doesn't make sense. Oh, wrap it up because we got to get to break. Just didn't give breath or room. And what I was finding is we would have special after special, interview after interview, this after that, but no sustainable or tangible change was coming. And so that's where I, created The Shift. And I was like, you know what? I'm done talking about it. I want to see it. And so on a napkin, I was like, if I have a show that can cater to the type of stories that I want to hear as a fan of sport, what does that look like? What does that sound like? Who is on that show? What conversations are we having? And that's sort of how The Shift was bred. And I think people think that we're like the diversity corner. We're really not. We, I think, just live where the humanity in sport lives. So we can have Alec Manoa on our show. We can have Evander Kane talk about very serious topics, and we drilled him on that, right? Like, we can have the Raptors on. I think that was the one audience in Canada that was feeling very left out of the conversation. Everything was moving towards like a more stat space, hockey space. And I was just like, no, there's way more.
Yeah.
There's way more.
There's real life.
Yeah, there's life, but also like it's just different perspective that I think makes it interesting. Sport to me is like the best mirror of society. So we have to go there.
When you were presenting the idea, how did your bosses receive it?
They didn't get it. And they'll tell you that. That's fine. They didn't understand it. And then, you have to have the tough conversation of, this might not be for you. And the minute it becomes for you, it's not for me anymore. I think sometimes leaders have to recognize that there's a new wave, there's a new generation, and not everything you're going to get. And there's a little bit of ego in trying to make people cater their content for you to understand. And once you do that, it loses all authenticity. So once you kind of explain that, and you get a little bit more of like lenience in that way. But yeah, a lot of people didn't understand it. A lot of people thought that we would be a one and done of 2021. We were the fruits of the 2020 movement, and we were going to shut down.
And look
it's
at you.
2024. We're still posting on the Shift_Sports account. And we still have our show rolling.
And look at that, because there's a lot of brands who claim that they were
Yeah.
for us during the pandemic, during 2020, and where are they now?
Yeah,
They've backed
I think
out.
we're at a point where things are reverting back, which is scary. But I always think the pendulum swings. The pendulum always swings.
How important is it for individuals to just be represented in this field? And what should they, I guess, do to make sure that, not even this field, how do you suggest that Black individuals, when they're going into their work, whatever it is, how do you feel like they could be better represented?
Ooh, that's a great question. There's so many layers to it, because you have to understand, like, this institution in corporate space is not actually designed to love us. And I mean everyone in this room. Like, the corporate world.
And not even women.
Yeah,
Like-
especially not women. Like, corporate, if you enter into a job, and I'm sorry, I have to be that person. If you enter into a job and sign a contract and think that that job and contract and institution is gonna love you down, love you more than your family, you are setting yourself up for a level of heartbreak. Do not attach yourself to a job, a title, none of that. Be who you are when you walk into a space, and that's the first piece of confidence, because we're all on our phones, so we all know layoffs just happened at my company, and a lot of people have to grapple with that if they've, I tied their identity to that. My heart breaks for that, but this is just the way that the industry is moving, and it really wakes you up to that piece. I think as much as I want to put the onus of Black youth and Black professionals to go into a space and be confident in themselves, Alicia, I can't confidently sit here and say, yeah, go and do it, if I'm not confident that the space that they're walking to is safe. I think it's on corporations and places to make sure that the places that we're welcoming in people of color in are safe. And when I mean safe, I'm not meaning you're gonna get punched in your face and what, no. I mean safe in when you share your thoughts, are they listened to? Are they honored? If you walk in and you need some extra time and you need to have the conversation around mental health and taking a mental day, will that be honored and nobody blinking an eye? When someone looks at you, I thought you were stronger than that. Are you going to be microaggressed? Are people going to notice when you're microaggressed? How is HR set up? There's so many different layers and levels. And I'll tell you guys this, safe space, in 2020, there were a lot of conversations around how we were going to diversify our newsroom at TSN. And I refused. They were like, can you just put out a tweet saying we're hiring? I refused to put out the we're hiring tweet because I said I absolutely cannot do that to my community if I am not confident that the room they're about to walk in is cleansed of whatever we need to cleanse ourselves of, but setting them up for success.
Yeah, I completely agree, because it's like, why are you going to promote something and then they're going to come in and they're going to think that this is a great place that they're going to be able to be comfortable and be their true selves, and then find out they're not, and now they're having a miserable experience and their mental health is impacted.
It's just not it to me. There's no integrity in that, and I just strongly don't believe in that. And then I also have to say, I can fight as much, and it's super easy for people to digest me being like, yeah, more people of color on television. I want that. It makes me smile. It makes me really happy. But also, more people of color behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
More people of color in the C-suites.
Absolutely.
Because I'm telling you, I can sit here and be a talking head, and you're going to think everything's all blah-blah and fine. But when you go upstairs and you're like, well, who's running this joint? Who's deciding what type of sports you're watching on television? What stories you're hearing when it comes to what you're digesting? What news we talk about? What news you should care about when it comes to the 6 o'clock news. It's not me that's behind there. And that's a very important conversation. When I had ideated the shift, I said, I don't even need to host this thing. Make sure you give me my executive producer title and I'll be grand. I'll be fine. We can get someone else to host this. There's just such importance in ownership because I just think that's going to be the real drive to change and the real advocacy.
I said similar things when I have an advertising background. That's the program that I graduated from here. And now working in like the influencer space, right? And these brands reach out to me and they want to hire the Black folks and other folks of color, but then their team is just all white people who don't understand. I say, like, we need to be back there too, right?
Yeah.
We need to be at the tables making decisions, because that's when the stupid things happen with like H&M and having the little Black boy wear a monkey sweater. Like that.
Zara on their,
That's like the
I can
stupid
feel
things.
like
And
her eyes just like, we work together, and a lot of brand work that we do, we'll come onto set.
Yep.
We'll shoot certain things. And I'm the type of person, I'll take a glance. Who's behind the camera? Who's calling the shots? Who's this? And honey, I love a postmortem. I love me a postmortem, because I think when you're in a position of power or influence, that's the real influence. When you have those conversations, and it's not to shame anyone. It's like, hey, you wanted me to come up here and talk about my Jamaican roots. I noticed that there's actually nobody of color behind the scenes. It would have been nice if my hairstylist was someone who can manage my hair type. It would, like, those are the types of things that, you could really use your power to do.
yes, I actually had to tell an agency before. I was working with them, and I used to have really long curly hair. And they booked an appointment for me to go get my hair straightened, which is something that I barely ever did. And it was at a salon that never dealt with my hair type. Like, nobody on their Instagram feed looked like me had my hair type. So I'm like, first of all, you should have asked me if I'm comfortable with getting my hair straightened. Secondly, like, why are you going to send me to somewhere that doesn't know how to deal with my hair?
It's just,
and then they said that the other option was for me to go somewhere to get my nails done, but it was only a natural nail place. And I'm like, I literally have like acrylics
like,
on.
know your
and they're
audience.
not even going to take it off. Like, this doesn't make sense. And I had to call out the guy. He was an Asian man, and he was like, I'm so sorry. I really didn't think about it. I was just booking. Of course you didn't.
Yeah.
And there was a younger Black woman who had just started there, and I was like, it's unfortunate that I have to tell you this, but you knew when they were making the planning and you never said anything, right? And I'm like, I know it's going to be hard, but like, these are kind of the positions that you need to be in, and you need to say something, right? Because if you had the same thought about hair, then why didn't you communicate it? And it's hard, but at the same time, something that needs to be done.
Yeah, I know there's like some people, men or women that might not, do their hair or makeup, and they're probably like, guys, this is some minute things, but you have to understand it matters. I remember talking to a gentleman about why it mattered that, the makeup artist knew how to deal with my skin tone, how to deal with my hair. And I said, I have to go in front of a whole country every single night. And never mind looking good, how about feeling good?
Yes.
Feeling confident. Because I know that I bust my butt to prepare as hard as I do for this broadcast. The last thing you need is for you to have 1 inch of, you need a level of confidence to do what I do every day. There's just no way about it. And it's those little things. It's those little things that can help get you there.
That's why I went the radio route. When I was doing my post-grad, I'm like, I'll do radio. I can like be in a room kind of by myself. I don't have to worry about how I looked, on camera, what my body was looking like.
Yeah.
But I didn't have confidence at the time. I was trying to build my voice, and that's why I was like, if I go to radio, I'll build my voice, and then I can focus on everything else after, right?
Yeah.
So Black History Month at Sheridan, the theme is finding home and belonging and community, right? What would your advice be to people here, people watching at home, how they can contribute to the idea of creating inclusive spaces where everyone feels like they belong?
That's a great question. I think first is getting introspective and figuring out, what does home actually mean to you? Like, what does that feeling mean? And once you have that idea of what that feels like, how do you fiercely protect that? What does that mean? Does that mean checking who you're around? Do they fit within that ethos? Setting up safe spaces, setting up conversations, having difficult conversations in order to create comfortable spaces. You know, with my team, we're all BIPOC. And that wasn't because I was out there being like, I need everyone of color on my show. It was just, I just wanted the best people to create dope things, and just so happened. But I think what I'm very proud of with the shift is, you know, we'll have meetings where we just open the line. I don't have much to say, but if we're talking about issues and conversations about Gaza, or we're talking about Black History Month, or we're talking about, you know, different fights that might not necessarily I have the closest proximity to, I think what is so important to me is that I do give room and space for my team to express what they need to express, and so that they can feel heard. You know, people think that being a really good journalist is how you present and this and that and whatever. Honestly, the best way that you can be a journalist is to be a damn good listener. And that's also how you can be a really good leader. And so maybe that's the ways that we can start to create really safe spaces that feel like home.
Not enough people listen. As a trailblazer, do you have any advice for any young Black students who are about to go into the workforce, whether it's in media or just the corporate world? Do you have any advice for them to feel confident in navigating these?
I would say maybe make a list of all of the things that you think make you different. And then realize that that's the list of things that make you so damn dope. I think, you know, for so long, like I'll tell you this story. When I first made my debut on SportsCenter, I like went a week doing my thing, thought I was in the clear. All the N-word tweets went to a bay, and I was giving my highlights and Tarasenkoing and all the fun hockey stuff. And I was like, yes, I fit in. Everyone's comfortable with my blackface on their screens. And I go home, and I get a phone call from Veronica Marshall. Now, Veronica Marshall is my grandmother. And she's like, Kayla. I'm like, yes, Grandma. She's like, why you sound like that on TV? I really am starting to sound like her. That's crazy. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, you sound like a white lady. I was like, huh. She's like, you don't sound like Kayla Ann. Kayla Ann's my real name. It's very Jamaican.
Yes, it is. Add an Ann to anything.
And it was nothing against, it was not anything against white women. What she was trying to get at was, you had changed your voice so much to make everybody else in the room feel comfortable with you showing up on their TV screens that I have lost my granddaughter. Yeah. Can you bring her back? Because that girl got her to that seat at the table. And that girl's gonna keep her at that table. Not you changing up all these things. Oh, thanks, Grandma. Not you changing up all these things and straightening your hair as much as you can, or wearing this certain thing to make other people feel confident or comfortable with you being in their presence. And I swear that was like the one that just changed everything. I wore braids the next week. I was styling and dialing and profile, and I was me. And I was the best version of me on television, and I resonated with people, and I felt loose and fun, and I was less stressed going to work. Like, and I think when you just get to that point of like, this is who I am.
Yep.
And who I am is pretty freaking amazing. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, that really sounds like a you conversation. But like, I need to continue being on my path, fulfilling my calling, because I have important things to do in this world. So that's what I would say to young Black professionals, that you are needed. Every bit of you that you think is different is probably the thing that's going to change the world.
Don't try to conform. Just be yourself.
Yeah. Trust me.
You'll stand out.
You don't want to be on the other side.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing anyways.
I was going to ask you, and you mentioned braids. Tell us about your first time wearing braids on air and all the thoughts and anxieties, and then afterwards.
Oh my gosh. So if there's a black woman in the place, let me put up your hand if someone's touched your hair, then you never told. Yep, there we go, everyone. That was my first experience. I went into the newsroom and oh my gosh, I said, what am I like?
Yeah.
Why are you touching me? And so that was my first experience of, wow, no boundaries. And I just remember walking into the newsroom and expecting that to happen. So I was just like, okay, get on your... And then also just going on television and realizing, like, I didn't have to check if my, like, leave out was laid out straight. Like, my hair looked good.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, I don't know, I just kept it pushing. And then, like, I'm the type of person, if I wasn't on TV, I'd probably have like 100 tattoos. Like I'm like an impulse tattoo person. Like I have tattoos in hidden spaces. But anyways, it's just how I express myself. So I can't really do that because I'll just have like blue face tattooed on the side
Oh
of
my gosh,
face.
please
No,
never.
I'm joking. So I have to do that with style and clothes in my hair. So some days I'm gonna give you Kayla with this hair. Next days you're gonna get Kayla Ann with a nice short bob. Other days you're gonna get, people are so
With
like,
the
what?
bangs.
You might get a bang. You might get a braid, and that's just how I express myself.
love it.
No one's confused as to who I am. They still font me at the bottom. I don't look that different with different hairstyles. But yeah, you just gotta have fun with it.
I agree. I've been trying to have fun with my
Yes,
hair
and
the
you look
last
great.
year.
I just think it's just such a beautiful journey, and you know, I'm very open about my journey in all ways. I try to be as honest and I think that that's important for laying down blueprints. So yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I'm in my 30s. I'm figuring it out. I'm on my hair journey. I'm on, you know, my weight fluctuates up and down. You know, like I'm a human being.
Yes.
That's how I want to connect with people behind the screens.
I love it. You are honestly amazing.
Thank
I love
you. So are
talking.
you.
Thank you. I love talking to you. I love being around you. I hope you guys have resonated just a little bit with Kayla's journey. We're actually going to open up the floors for some Q&A. Who has the mic?
Check. All right.
There you go.
We got our
Danny
first
looked like he was
Q&A
ready to go
right
rap.
over here.
Hey, this is my guy.
Yeah.
It is.
Friends,
Hello.
knew them both when they were students. Transparently, I'm married to a woman of Jamaican heritage, and I've watched her navigate
Sorry.
the space in the banking industry. And she's been an incredible role model to my daughter, who's here somewhere. And the thing I would like you to maybe share with the students and people here is the amount of resilience I've seen my wife, my partner, have to navigate that space. Where do you think your resilience comes from? And how would you maybe pass that on to people that are here that need that?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a really good question. Do you want to go?
For me, it was not giving up on myself. And because that's what you could do. You could get faced with these barriers and then be like, okay, I don't belong. And then it can get you down.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? I want to live out my dreams. I remember 2020, got fired from my radio job, and I was so upset because I was like, why are you firing the only black person on your hip hop station? Why? Like, that makes no sense. But it's just like, you just got to keep going. If these are your dreams, you got to keep pushing. And I hope that even if you are in a space that's not inclusive to who you are, that you don't give up. Don't be scared to acknowledge that this shouldn't look like that. I did it on my last job. I used to work at Warner Music. I literally just quit the beginning of January to go back on the radio. And I would tell them all the time, like, you need more of me.
Yeah.
And then they started signing a lot of Punjabi artists. And I'm like, you can't put the Punjabi artists on the black folks just because we're people of color. We're the South Asian. You know, you have to be vocal because that's the only way that people are going to eventually see that, like, oh, there might be something. So yeah, just keep pushing, believe in your dreams, speak up. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's...
I think I really go back to like checking my receipts, and not checking my receipts from anything that I've done in this industry. I think I've done some dope things. I think the greatest thing I've done in my life is like survive. Like I said, I was someone who got kicked out of 2 schools because I got kicked out of my house at 15.
Yes.
Lived on my own, had to, do what I need to do to make ends meet. I went to an adult learning center and got my life back on track. I was in a very abusive situation where my ex tried to take my life and survived that. This is all trauma. Don't worry, we're in therapy, and I'm really thankful that I have the resources that I do.
Yes.
However, I think when you lean into the life of your receipts, like, I've overcome that. There is nothing, someone on this side of the world
Exactly.
looking at a 16-inch TV trying to tell me anything is gonna shake that spirit. And I think that that's where my resilience comes from, is it's like when you, and everyone has lived life. There's a life that we all live that is outside of when we walk into work. And when you realize that, like, that's the real things that we're overcoming, like, I mean everybody, white, black, Asian, everybody. Like, that's your stack of proof that you show up every day and you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
Don't let the industry dictate to you what that value is. And when I'm like very clear on why I'm here and who I am, and I walk into that space, I can get fired tomorrow, and I'm like, look what I overcame at home, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't make you any less.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that question. Thanks, Flack.
Thank you.
Do we have any other volunteers for a question? Awesome. I'll come to you. Yeah, stand up.
Yes, ma'am, she has a purple light. Yes, a purple lid.
Thank you. When you talk about being the first, you're usually the only one in that space. So how do you navigate being the only black woman in that space? And can you give any advice to being the only black woman in a space?
What I'll say is, usually when you're the first, it means that there was probably 100 other women that looked like you that tried to be the first and didn't. And it was because people told them that they weren't good enough. So I never say that I'm special or different. I'm just continuing a legacy from a lot of women that were in Canada and wanted to do what I do now, but just were told no or had the door shut in their face.
And gave
so
up.
I reach back for those women, and I try to connect with those women and just learn, but also say thank you to those women, if that makes sense. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the sports realm. It can be the Marcy Ians in the news spaces. It can be other women in radio and whatnot. I think that sometimes we think we're so alone, but it's because we're like this. And then when we start to look around and look in different other industries of other women, I could tell you a lot of my inspiration probably doesn't come from the sports industry at all. It's talking to other women of color that are doing it in different spaces. So yeah,
I love that.
You have a community. You
Yeah.
do. I promise you have a community.
I agree.
Thank you, Alicia and Kayla. It was very, very inspiring. I guess my question is, we're living in a world where we're really changing what diversity means and harnessing the power of diversity and really leaning into it. So in an individual capacity on that journey, what's next for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. More of the ownership side of things, in terms of really setting platforms up for other people to then tell their story. As much as I think that there has been a shift in representation within the space, I don't think it's anywhere near enough. And I'm not even talking about people that look like me. I'm talking about people that represent indigenous communities, LGBTQ plus communities as well. I just think that, again, it's about fighting for the liberation of all people. And with that being said, I think the most powerful thing that I can do in these days is saying, I don't know enough. And I think that the worst thing people do and what stunts diversity showing up is when we act like we know everything. I don't know as much as I should know. And the ways in which I can be active in that is by doing what I do for a living, and that's asking as much questions as I can. And listening. But we're not doing that little listening and learning thing that we did back in 2020. We're not bringing that back. Actively listening.
Yeah.
What does that look like? How can I show up for you? How can I say your name in a room that you're not? Like, that's the energy I want to carry moving forward.
I love it for you. For me, I'm on a new journey right now as I just entered back into the radio space at Flow 98.7. I heard it say Flow 98.8. Don't go there. Go to Flow 98.7. And for me, I felt the need to leave my other job, one, to chase my dreams, obviously. When you get a morning show, you have to say yes. But I used to complain that there wasn't enough Black talent on radio. And so I complained, and then I got the opportunity, and I could have been like, no, I'm going to stay at this well-paying job that I was at, or I can go and be what I wanted originally. So for me, I just want to continue to push and grow the station again, get listeners back, get businesses back, try to be back in the community, and hopefully reignite the passion that other Black future radio media kids want, Like, when you don't see it, you kind of get discouraged. So hopefully just being able to be like, yo, she did it and she's there, great, I could do it too, Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask how you reconcile the desire to work hard and the need to rest. Because something that really stood out to me was you talking about the need to prove yourself. I can identify with that. And I'm also very hardworking, but you talked about healing, and I think that's something that as a community we really need to move into. So I just was curious how you reconcile those two things.
It's hard. It's very hard. I actually just came off a leave of absence last year, just so I could do those things, heal physically and mentally. And that was the hardest thing to do. It's crazy. I'm talking about all the hard things I've been through in my life, and the hardest thing I was able to do was tell myself to sit down and actually listen to that. And I think, again, because when you're first-gen Canadian and your parents put that battery in your back of, you better make something of yourself.
Yeah.
They always got a story. I was walking to school when I was 2 years old, banana peels on the heels, and da-da-da-da-da. No, this doesn't make any sense. I think that you subconsciously take that on. It's not that I'm even it's not my mom tells me that every day. She doesn't call me to be by the way, I think you just... You think about it. You think about it, and that's sort of what fuels you. And then you get into the real world, I guess, after school, and you're like, damn, this hill is steep. And then you're like, and I gotta climb it really, really fast because I got a next crop of people coming up, and and it's just you just start to work, but you work and you work and you work and you lose. You lose your why, And then I realized I got to a point where I was doing so much, taking on everything and feeling like I had to be everything for everyone. And then I started to really lose why I was doing it in the first place. I came in this because I wanted to be a storyteller, and I wanted to inspire others who were off the camera to tell their stories, because to me, that's the best way that we can move forward, is by documenting and sharing and planning. And I just realized I was just so burnt out, which stopped me from that mission. And I just think at this point the most radical thing we can do as people of color is put up our hands and say, not today, sir. No, I don't have capacity for that. That's the new. I don't have capacity for that. Yeah. Because again, back to these corporations, if you're corporate folk up in here, they're like, gosh damn, don't tell them the secrets. They want you to be burned out but show up to work the next day. You know what I mean? They're okay with you burning yourself out and showing up at 9 o'clock.
And it's so toxic.
It's right, but they're okay because they think you're okay with it. Do you know what I mean? So it's
boundaries.
it's boundaries. And I think as people of color, we actually don't really take stock. Like when you come into a room or a business, I did not learn what benefits I had until like candidly 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like we're just happy to be here. I was happy to be somewhere for a very long time without like kicking off my shoes and getting comfortable and learning what benefits were available to me. Like learn what benefits are available to you. Rest is a benefit. Lean into that every single time. You know what I mean? Because guess what? You can, knock on wood, get laid off or something happens to you. They replace you the next day. Next day.
They start looking.
Yeah.
ASAP. It's so funny that you said that about the benefits because my former HR girl, South Asian, she told me, she was like, I've never taken a sick day since working here for 5, 6 years.
Take the sick
I was like,
day.
girl, you're
The
in
mental
HR.
health-
You're the one who's
there's-
supposed to.
There is vacation days that aren't rolling over.
Yeah.
Take them. There are sick days that you're not using. Take the damn sick days. Mental health days. Take the sick days. Listen.
Don't listen to your parents when they say, no.
It's
Like,
not this. There's a
take it.
reason. There's a reason why your white colleagues are taking all these days. And I'm going to tell you it's because they've had the language to identify things around mental health, okay? People of color, we're just catching up to the conversation fully and giving ourselves permission to talk about mental health, to identify when we're going through depression, to identify certain things. We now have the language. So you have to name it first and understand that it is your right as a Canadian in this country to all of the resources that we all are supposed to have. Take your days.
Absolutely. And you also have to think about it, what they say on the planes, right? If something was to happen, you got to put the mask on you before anybody else because you can't help. And so even being a mother now, how am I supposed to give to my daughter if I'm not okay? Like I've dealt with depression for a very long time, in and out, and then especially after having the baby, postpartum depression. And I would sit there like, I can't give her my all.
Yeah.
And so instead of trying to do it all, how about I say, Mom, take her for a few days so I can sleep in peace.
Yeah.
And I can rest and eat and do whatever I need to do for me to feel better so that I can then, again, help her grow and learn.
Yeah, it's filling your cup, but it's also understanding as women in this room. I always joke, I'm like, I wish I had the confidence of like a 24-year-old white dude walking into an interview. Definitely underqualified, but they gonna come in every single time and convince you, right? Like, you're probably doing twice as much as you probably should be doing at your job anyways, if you know what I'm saying. Like, so if you taking the foot off the gas a little bit, I promise you no one's suffering.
Especially as a woman and like being in the corporate space at my previous job, that's when I realized that corporate worlds are not for women and women who choose to have kids, because I told them we're supposed to be remote. Then you want to do hybrid. And now you're making me come in 4 days a week, and now my child is going from house to house
we
because
could start a whole
I've
nother
made the
podcast
decision.
about daycare prices. Yes.
I made the decision to, one, not put her in daycare.
Yeah.
She gets looked after for my mom, and it's like, even if I did put her in daycare, the hours don't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
You have to pick your child up by a certain time. And if you're late, you're being charged, or even potentially just having them kicked out after the third strike.
Right.
How is that beneficial to us, If our child gets sick, then we have to take sick days. But what happens when our kid gives us the sickness, and then we do what? And so I just feel like there is not enough companies that are accommodating to the struggle of being a mother on top of that. And yeah.
Awesome. Check.
And-
Just on? Check. Awesome. We have one more question. We are live streaming this right now. So we have...
live stream. I'm so sorry.
Hi, live stream.
So we have a question from Kay and Keith, second-year advertising marketing student. How did you handle one of your first biggest successes you encountered in your career? Was imposter syndrome something you had to overcome?
Absolutely. For me, for sure. I think about it now. I'm always like, okay, am I supposed to be here? Even with like my show, or for this original station that used to be Flow or G98.7, very Caribbean, I'm biracial, you know? I always say I'm a black woman, but then sometimes I'm like, do they really think I'm a black woman? Because, you know? And I get those feelings, but I'm going to continue to rep as a black woman. But you kind of subconsciously think, like, am I enough? Right? And that's what I've had to deal with on the radio side or working in predominantly or reaching black communities. I'm like, I need to, but I also need to own it that I am, right? Without feeling a certain way. Yeah.
I'm not good with receiving flowers. I'm the first to admit that. I'm really like, it's tough for me because, put it this way, my biggest success, the first big success for me was getting an award from the By Blacks collective, and it was like, you know, best black personality. And I had gotten awards before them from like the overall, I guess, landscape media of whatnot, and I just think that to me that's like the ultimate is that my community represented me.
And they see you.
Yeah, and so I think to me that's why I struggle with certain successes is because it's like, well, who is that applause coming from?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, for so long, everyone thought I got my show because of the Times. Everyone thought that, you know, I was the token black girl to this and the third. And again, I always say, like, check the receipts.
Yeah.
Check the receipts.
You worked really hard for your career.
I worked so hard. Yeah, but I also am at a place where I'm like, I don't even want to say that anymore. You know, I think you just get to a point where you're just like, I ain't got to prove it. I don't have to prove myself.
No, you don't, because you're already there and you're doing.
Yeah, and guess what? Even if I just started yesterday and have this platform that I have, I was meant to have it. I'm a firm believer that the universe never grants you what you cannot take on.
I agree.
Check. So we have one final quick question right here.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
Just want to say thank you for sharing your journey. It was really inspiring. I resonated with some things, especially being an international student from the Caribbean, Barbados. And
Hey, I love Barbados.
And okay, so my difference is I don't have any roots here. I don't have a community. So what advice will you give a student who has the drive, not the confidence, but looking to break through into this world, but don't know where to start?
That's a good question. I think what I could say is you've already broken in. Like, I think you need to take a moment and give yourself some, like, applause that, like, dude, you left your home to come here to, like, make a better life for yourself, to learn. Like, that is such a brave thing, you know? Like, that is a brave thing. That takes courage. That takes confidence, you know? And so you've already broken through something for yourself and for your family. And so give yourself that.
Yeah.
When it comes to finding and putting roots and planting roots here, also understand that there's so many people that are like you as well that have immigrated to this country, first-gen Canadians that would call themselves Jamaican before they call themselves Canadian. You have a community here already, and tap into that community. You know, this is such a beautiful place, and I always have this back and forth with people who feel like they have to go to the States to get some kind of stamp of approval before they come back here and get celebrated. So. Yeah, and I get it. It's, you know, I deal with NBA players who are from Canada that had to go through that route, but you know, when you think about building here, we're the first ones, really, right? Like, you're going to build something here, and whatever it is that you're trying to go after and what you're seeking after, you might have to be the first in that. And that's just sort of like, I think, where the industry is going as well. When young journalists are like, yeah, what's next? I'm like, you're going to be the one to tell me. With the tickety talks and the Twitch and the this and the that, like, y'all are the ones up next. And that's so exciting. I don't fear, like, the next generation of people coming in to start something fresh and new. Because I was saying, like, the content creators, the IG girlies, all this. That was not a thing. And now it's a whole industry, which has created new jobs and new opportunities. So I think there should be just such pride that like you're a part of a new wave for people that look like you in whatever industry you want to flourish in.
Yeah, you are really brave to come here and not have anybody. I know that it's hard. Like I said, I've lived in the States, in multiple states, and I know it's not an easy thing and you might feel lonely, but your community is here. There's a lot and you should be proud because you actually made it out. I know when you're back home, there's probably so many people who are like, oh, I want to go here. I want to, yeah, exactly. I want to go to foreign, but you're here. You did it. You actually took the step. So be proud of that and find confidence in that.
Check, 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 check. All right, I'm
I
going to
think the
re-invite Anthony, our
councilman-
MC, up.
Councilman, did you want?
Oh, yeah.
The councilman had a question.
We got time. Okay, okay.
No.
One quick question?
Yeah.
One quick one. Go for it.
We were almost done, so I didn't want to mash that up. But thank you so much. That was very inspirational. It really resonated with me, being the first. And I had this moment sitting beside Len Carby and Alvin Tedjo, and all three of us are first as a first black counselor in the city of Mississauga in 20 years.
Hey.
Len Carby next to me is the first black man on the police services board ever. Alvin Tedjo is one of the first East Asian on city council. So our diversity on council itself is something. So I was just going to say, when you're the first, you have to make sure that you're not the last, and also that you keep the door open for the next one to come after you. But my question was, do you have any mentors? Who are the people that you look up to, and what is the value of mentors?
Oh my gosh, mentors are everything. Marcy Ian, as I mentioned, is like a mentor of mine. Lainey Louie is a mentor of mine, but honestly, they're like friends at this point. And, I think what inspires me the most about Marcy is that she came into the space as a broadcaster, but now she's in the political space.
Yeah.
And what she's proved is that, you don't have to just be one thing.
Yeah, you don't need to be boxed in.
Yeah, and again, when you really, really commit to your why, like my why is being a storyteller and finding the humanity in stories, that can look like if, say, I joined the police force or say I wanted to get into politics or whatever, I can still be committed to that why, but it can look different, right? And I think that was a very important lesson for me. But also, too, as we speak about mentors, we have to acknowledge the idea of sponsors. And so for those that don't know, mentors are obviously the ones that'll take you out for coffees and have the calls and whatnot. And sponsors are the ones that are gonna like mention your name in rooms that you're not. And so again, when I was, going through my audition process unfairly at that time, they were like, girl, we just don't want to see no black girl up on television. Can you be funny like Cabby? Like, that's true words from my old boss. I had a Jay Onright write an email saying, please explain to me why.
Yeah.
She is 6 auditions in. How many times you need her to go over this same damn hockey highlight pack? She is capable. Like, that to me is like what sponsorship looks like. I didn't know about that email exchange, but just being someone who can say your name in rooms that you would not naturally enter is also massive too.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm always an advocate of trying to like bring people up. If I get an opportunity, if I know somebody that other person does, like I want to see you succeed. It's not just about me. I want it to be about you as well. So I've had mentors that I didn't even realize were mentors. And I think that's the best thing about mentors. When they are friends, like you say, they're your mentor, but they're also your friend. And I think that's the most beneficial thing. If you do choose to like kind of cold call somebody to ask for mentorship, make sure that you are offering them something as well, because people get busy, they have their own lives. And if they're going to take the time out to speak to you about your career, how can you help them? Like, are they older and they don't know how to run social media? Teach them how to run social media, help them create like a little thing. If you know how to do graphics, like just figure out a way or a need in their day-to-day that's gonna help them. And I think that will set yourself out apart from all the other people that wanna meet up for coffee.
Yeah. So how can people join your mentorship program, Councilman? Always looking. You hear that, Sheridan?
All right, folks, can we give Kayla and Alicia a big round of applause, please?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, guys, just want to say thank you so much. I know it's 5 o'clock, 5:20, Lord have mercy. But for you guys to just sit and take time out of your day, I don't take any of that for granted because it is your time. So for you to be intentional with your time and listening to this conversation, we really appreciate it.
And participating,
Yeah,
we
thank
love
you.
to see it.
Thank you.
It goes a long way, right? Awesome. So just on that note, again, we want to thank you for our authentic dialogue, sharing your journey, your personal stories. I hope that everyone was able to take some parts away from what they shared with us and be able to apply it to your own life, because it's not just a one-time thing that they're sharing, it's their life, right? So you can apply these things and move forward, because that's what life is about, moving forward. I would like to also thank our wonderful community partners and Sheridan community who joined both in person and online. The Sheridan Student Union, of course, the Black Excellence Committee as well. And then I'd also like to especially shout out our counselors who came to visit. So by name, we have Martin Reed from Ward 9. Thank you for coming.
Hey.
Alvin Tedjo from Ward 2.
Hey.
Deepika Damarla from Ward 7. Stephen Dasco from Ward 1. And Len Carby, a member of the Peel Police Service Board. So thank you all. So really quickly before we let y'all out, Alicia, Kayla, on behalf of Sheridan College, Bruno would like to hand you some gifts.
Gifts.
Everyone likes gifts,
Thanks.
right? Can we give them a round of applause?
Bruno! I should have worn double blue. I should have threw on my old. I still have my basketball stuff. I should have wore it. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm wondering if I can stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Sheridan life.
Thank you so much. All right, flex.
Right? Look at the
Thank
chest.
you guys. Oh my gosh, my Scarborough people are gonna be so offended if I wear this. Guess where I was?
Your which? Your Scarborough?
Yes.
Awesome. So just a few more things before we actually let you out. Please check out the Sheridan Student Union's website. We have a whole bunch of events coming out for February and moving forward. There was a question that was asked by a student about community. Sheridan's Black Excellence Committee is starting a mentorship program. So if you're interested, there's an event that's being held on February 13th in room B22 from 3:30 to 5:30. So if you're looking for that community and that feeling of home that Kayla referenced earlier, come by and check it out and see if it's for you. And then last but not least, if Kayla would be gracious enough to give us some opportunities for a meet and greet, y'all can line up quietly and peacefully along the side here, and then we can see if we can get some photos or a handshake for you, all right? Thank you all so much, and have a great day.